Welcome to The Deep Dive, the show where we take your source material, strip away all the noise, and really just deliver the essential knowledge you need. This deep dive is brought to you by the DataZen AI podcast, created by the DataZen community. Our focus today is it's all about the massive and frankly unexpected acceleration we're seeing in AI. We are unpacking the sudden, high-stakes release of ChatGPT 5.2, and our mission here is critical. We need to break down exactly what's new under the hood. We need to analyze how this latest model series stacks up against its rivals. Google's Gemini 3 Pro and Anthropic's Claude Opus 4.5. And maybe most crucially for you, the learner, we want to define the precise scenarios where it's frankly massive cost premium is actually justified, to maximize your productivity and secure a real return on investment.
Yeah, before we really dive into all the benchmarks and the pricing, it's probably a good idea to just establish a foundation for everyone listening. So when we use the term large language model, or LLM, what we're talking about is a really, really complex AI system. You can think of it as a massive digital brain that's been trained on just colossal amounts of data, trillions of words, snippets of code, scientific papers, images, and all that training, it enables it to understand context, to generate coherent human language, to write and debug pretty complex code, and even interpret what it's seeing in an image. At its core, it's designed to be your most capable sort of collaborative assistant, something that can synthesize huge bodies of information for you on demand.
And the context around this launch, that's what gives this deep dive its real urgency. This wasn't a standard product cycle, was it? Not a quiet rollout.
Well, not at all.
Our sources are confirming this release was dramatically accelerated. We're hearing that earlier this month, the OpenAI leadership declared an internal code red. And apparently this was all driven by the speed and the capability leap they saw from Google's recent Gemini 3 Pro launch.
Right.
So this 5.2 release, it's OpenAI's direct, aggressive counter move. It's basically a public declaration that they intend to reassert their dominance in this AI race.
It really shows that the nature of the competition has shifted. It's become much more reactive.
It's a high-stakes moment for the entire industry. Okay, let's really unpack this. If you've been using these tools every day, you know that performance gains, especially at this top level, they are incredibly hard to come by. Have you tried ChatGPT 5.2 yet? What surprised you? Because based on the technical docs and the benchmarks we've been analyzing, the raw intellectual lift from this new family of models, it's not incremental. It feels transformative.
And to really understand the strategy, you first have to realize that OpenAI didn't release just one monolithic model. They launched a specialized family, a family of 3 variants under the GPT 5.2 banner, and each one is optimized for different needs, different budgets. And that's a critical distinction from their previous simpler releases.
So it's not one size fits all anymore.
Not at all. First, we have GPT 5.2 Instant. You can think of this as the racing engine of the family. It is designed from the ground up for speed and low latency. It's perfect for those everyday quick tasks, drafting a rapid email reply, generating a short summary, or, a simple code refactor where you just need an answer right now and the complexity is low.
So Instant is the workhorse, the one you'd use 90% of the time, where speed really trumps absolute depth.
Exactly.
It stops you from wasting the more expensive, more powerful resources on just a simple question.
Precisely. The second one, and this is really the core of our performance discussion, is GPT 5.2 Thinking. This is the highly advanced, the flexible model. It's optimized for those complex professional tasks that require real-world application. Things like multi-file development, deep architectural decisions, or, say, writing detailed technical specifications. Its key feature is what they call dynamic deliberation capacity. It can intelligently assess how hard a problem is and then allocate the right amount of thinking time to ensure you get the best balance between speed and quality.
So that's the one most of us knowledge workers will probably be living in day to day.
I think so. Then finally, we have GPT 5.2 Pro. This one is often internally referred to as X-High, and OpenAI positions this as, and I'm quoting here, our smartest and most trustworthy model yet.
Okay, so this is the specialist.
This is the specialist, the brain trust. It is reserved for those extremely difficult, mission-critical questions. The tasks where logical certainty is just paramount and you're willing to accept a potentially significant delay, maybe even minutes, in exchange for the absolute highest quality and deepest reasoning it can offer.
That whole tiered structure, it sends a really clear message. AI is now a professional tool, and it has professional pricing to match.
Absolutely.
Which brings us right to accessibility and cost. The rollout was fast, right? Started December 11th, 2025, but it was heavily skewed toward paying customers.
Right. Users on Plus, Pro, Go, Business, Enterprise plans And of course, developers hitting the engine directly through the API.
So this is squarely aimed at the enterprise user who has already, accepted the cost of using powerful AI in their workflow.
Yeah, and it's important for organizations that are relying on the older infrastructure to see the urgency here. GPT 5.1 is not going to be supported forever.
Yeah.
It's going to be available under legacy models for paid users, but only for 3 short months before it's completely sunset.
And that's a really short migration window. That is a serious pressure point for big companies that need to refactor all their existing AI apps that were built on 5.1.
And now we have to talk about the cost reality, which I think is going to be the biggest hurdle for a lot of people to adopt this.
Yeah.
GPT 5.2 is not just a little more expensive, it's a significant leap. The new cost is roughly $1.75 per million input tokens, but the number that really matters is the $14 per million output tokens.
$14. That is a stark 40% increase over the old GPT-5 prices.
It is.
A 40% price hike, especially on the output side, that's massive. The cost of running high-volume, repetitive tasks like, customer support summaries or analyzing big documents, that's going to spike. It immediately forces every developer and every CFO to ask that question. Is the performance improvement really worth that extra cost?
Absolutely. And that decision to increase the price so much, it tells us 2 things about OpenAI's strategy. First, they believe the performance gain is so significant that it actually multiplies the economic value it unlocks. They think it can replace tasks that currently cost way more than that $14 per million tokens.
Okay.
And second, they're actively segmenting their market. They're encouraging casual users to stick to the cheaper, older models or the new instant variant, while reserving their most powerful engine for those who can really afford to use its extreme capabilities.
But they did offer a bit of a strategic olive branch, right, to help high-volume developers with that cost.
They did.
We saw these efficiency exceptions. So developers using cached inputs, like running the same query against a huge document over and over, they get a substantial 10x reduction in price.
Right, which brings that input cost way down. It's a huge deal for certain applications.
And what was the other one?
Furthermore, for non-time sensitive or repeated queries, developers can use the batch API, and that gives them a 50% discount.
Okay, so that's a clear signal. They're thinking about the economics of large-scale use.
They are. They're basically saying, yes, our new engine is a Ferrari, but if you're driving the same route every day, we'll cut you a deal on gas.
Right. It's an engineering-driven strategy to manage that high cost for high-utility professional use. It stops the price from just crippling enterprise adoption.
Exactly.
So the focus here is clearly not on saving money for casual chat. It's all about unlocking even more economic value, enabling professional tasks that were just too complex or too unreliable for AI before.
That's right. They're positioning GPT 5.2 as the specialized instrument for creating complex spreadsheets, drafting executive-level presentations, debugging multi-architecture code bases, and coordinating these huge multi-step projects.
Which brings us to the core question. What is the raw intellectual lift that makes that price and that positioning actually worthwhile?
Okay, so let's look at the raw horsepower here. Moving past the architecture, this is where it gets really, really interesting in terms of raw intelligence. We have to look at the scores this model got on some of the most difficult reasoning benchmarks out there.
And the intelligence leap is, it's measurable and it's profound, particularly in hard logic domains like mathematics and science. Let's just start with mathematical certainty. On the AM 2025 Math Competition Benchmark, GPT 5.2 was tested without any access to external tools, and it achieved, perfect performance, 100%.
100%. That's not just passing the test. That is
Right.
acing it perfectly.
Correct. And the significance of 100%, it really can't be overstated here. Gemini 3.0 Pro, it scored 95%. Claude Opus 4.5 scored 92.8. Moving from 95 to 100% on a competition designed to test deep mathematical insight. It suggests a fundamental qualitative shift.
It suggests the model's logical process is now capable of guaranteeing error-free work on really difficult multi-step problems. This is the kind of reliability that financial analysts and engineers have been dreaming of.
And that performance game holds up at the highest levels too, right? We also saw a major jump on the PhD-level science test, GPQA Diamond.
Precisely. The GPQA Diamond benchmark is made up of extremely difficult graduate-level science questions. Biology, chemistry, physics. GPT 5.2 scored 92.4%. which validates its, near expert scientific analysis capabilities. It's a notable improvement from GPT 5.1 score of 88.1%.
And moving the needle 4% at that level of difficulty, that's
Well,
incredibly hard to do.
It is. It confirms that the enhanced reasoning core is translating into genuine domain-specific insight.
Those are impressive numbers for, defined domains. But the metric that I think truly speaks to the potential for generalized intelligence is the score on the ARC-AGI-2 benchmark. This is the test designed to tell the difference between a sophisticated pattern matcher and a truly flexible thinker.
Let's spend some time contextualizing ARC-AGI-2, because I agree, its results are revolutionary. It was developed by François Chollet specifically to test genuine generalization.
So the ability to infer abstract, totally new rules from just a few examples and then apply those rules to new situations.
And crucially, the benchmark is designed to be easy for humans, hard for AI. Humans solve 100% of these tasks quickly.
And historically, AI has failed spectacularly on this test. Why is that?
Because the tasks, they resist memorization.
Right.
You can't just pull an answer from your training set. You have to reason the underlying mechanism from first principles.
Right, and previous models were stuck in the low single digits. GPT 5.1 itself only managed 17.6%.
Exactly, which demonstrated this massive structural gap between human and AI intelligence.
And now, the shockwave result that has everyone talking.
Yeah.
GPT 5.2 thinking scored an unprecedented 52.9%, and the Pro variant hit 54.2.
It's not a marginal gain. This is a 3.1 times improvement over 5.1 17.6%.
Wow.
This signals a fundamental architectural breakthrough in the model's ability to learn abstraction and generalize patterns.
And how does that compare to the competition?
To put that leap into context against the rivals, Google Gemini 3 DeepThink, which is highly advanced, it scored 45%. So 5.2 has definitively pushed past that previous ceiling.
So this is the big signal that AI is starting to crack the problem of abstract, flexible intelligence. It's moving away from just being a statistical prediction engine.
It is.
But wait, hold on. A 52.9% success rate is amazing, but the model still fails on almost half of these human-easy tasks. Are we maybe giving OpenAI a little too much credit for what's still a partial success?
That's the question.
I mean, if I fail half the time on a puzzle a human can solve in 2 minutes, I'm not exactly at human-level fluid intelligence.
And that is the essential critical reflection here. While the leap is massive and strategically important, the remaining gap is perhaps the most important finding of this entire launch. Even at 52.9%, the model still struggles profoundly with the other 46%.
It's still a huge gap.
It underscores Choled's original caution. True fluid intelligence remains elusive. GPT 5.2 has learned many more general abstractions, but it still lacks that seamless, adaptable, and flexible application of intelligence that really defines human cognition.
So the battle for true generalization is still far from over.
Far from it.
Okay, that sets a perfect frame for measuring utility. Theoretical intelligence is one thing, but how does this translate into practical enterprise memory? For years, one of the biggest pain points for complex projects has been the context window, the model's short-term memory. Previous models would literally forget the beginning of a long contract or a big code block.
And GPT 5.2 just annihilates this problem. It features a colossal 400,000 token context window.
400,000.
Yeah. And to put that number into perspective for you listening, that's enough capacity to process an entire multi-year contract, a whole technical specification manual, or even the vast majority of a company's code base, all in a single prompt.
That's 5 times larger than the previous standard. For engineers, I mean, this solves a huge architectural headache.
It does?
They no longer have to spend time chunking up documents or summarizing previous outputs or using complex retrieval strategies just to make sure the model has all the relevant info.
Exactly. Before, if you were analyzing a 100,000-line code base, you had to slice it up, analyze each piece, and then manually stitch all the insights together.
A huge pain.
Now you can just feed the entire thing in, and the model holds the full context of the project in memory all at once.
Yeah.
It unlocks the potential for truly holistic analysis.
But capacity is meaningless without reliability. If you load 400,000 tokens of complex legal text, you have to know the model can actually find and use a single critical clause buried deep inside it.
Which brings us to the ultimate memory stress test, the needle in a haystack test, using the highly sensitive MRCR v2 variant.
Okay, what does that test do?
The MRCRV2 variant is essential because it specifically tests information retrieval accuracy across extremely long documents. GPT 5.1 was, frankly, unreliable in this scenario. It only achieved 42% accuracy at 256,000 tokens.
42%. That reliability score meant you could never trust it with high-stakes financial or legal documents.
If a lawyer used a model that was wrong 58% of the time.
That's malpractice waiting to happen.
Precisely. The dramatic change is that GPT 5.2 achieved 98% accuracy when retrieving embedded information in documents up to 256,000 tokens long.
98%. That is a massive jump.
This 56 percentage point jump in reliability is the single most important metric for enterprise adoption. It fundamentally changes the utility of that big context window. It transforms it from an impressive but unreliable demo into a production-ready capability for high-value analysis, like legal discovery or reviewing complex financial models.
That 98% accuracy score, that's what truly justifies the price premium for a lot of organizations.
I think so.
It shifts AI from being an interesting brainstorming partner to being a reliable industrial-grade co-pilot. So let's look at how this improved intelligence and memory consistency translates into the messier world of real code and automated workflows.
The superior reasoning we were just talking about, it translates directly into the ability to write and debug code that is cleaner, more complex, and ready for deployment. We can measure this on the SWE bench protest. It assesses the model's ability to solve actual, previously submitted GitHub issues, real bugs reported by real developers on open source projects.
So this isn't just solving a clean programming puzzle, it's dealing with messy legacy code, dependencies, complex architecture decisions.
Correct. GPT 5.2 scored 55.6% on resolving these real-world issues. And this really cements its position as the most capable AI coding assistant, not just for writing boilerplate, but for engaging in complex, multi-file development work that requires a deep contextual understanding of a project structure.
And this reliability extends beyond just code, right? Into automation and AI agents?
Yes. The industry is moving toward building AI systems that can execute a whole sequence of actions, perceive a problem, reason about a solution, call 7 different external tools like APIs or databases, and then execute the task. This is called multi-step agentic work.
And this requires incredible reliability because if step 3 in a 7-step sequence fails, the whole thing falls apart.
Exactly.
So what did we see on the agentic benchmark?
We saw an unprecedented leap on the TAU2 benchmark, which specifically measures success on workflows requiring between 7 and 10 sequential tool calls. The success rate for GPT 5.2 thinking. It jumped to 98.7%.
98.7%. That is an astonishing near-perfect reliability score.
It is.
And compare that to the previous generation, GPT 5.1, which only succeeded 47% of the time on the same tasks.
It's a coin flip.
Right. That shift from a coin flip to guaranteed completion, that's the key economic gain we talked about earlier.
It's the difference between a system that needs constant human oversight and a system you could deploy autonomously. OpenAI even demonstrated this with a complex flight issue scenario. You had a passenger with a delay, a misconnection, a lost bag, medical requirements, a task requiring maybe 10 API calls to resolve.
Right.
GPT 5.1 failed roughly half the time. It required a human to step in. GPT 5.2 succeeded reliably. It essentially enables full automation of complex customer support scenarios that were just impossible before.
And this is where that price premium starts to make sense. If you can fully automate a complex, multi-step customer resolution, the salary of the human employee you no longer need for that task, it outweighs the $14 per million output tokens pretty quickly.
The real-world coding anecdotes really validate this reliability. We saw a test where GPT 5.1 and 5.2 were both asked to create a fully functional ocean wave simulation from a single prompt.
Okay.
GPT 5.1 really struggled. It often resulted in a blank screen or, a very rudimentary 2D simulator. In contrast, GPT 5.2 delivered a robust single-file HTML simulation. It included realistic wave physics, dynamic lighting controls, a polished user interface, all bug-free on the first try.
Wow. So it's not just better coding, it's better planning and execution of the entire project scope.
Exactly.
And the consensus from the developers who tested it, it was that 5.2 delivered production-ready code with fewer critical bugs. It handled hang cases proactively instead of needing the developer to repeatedly guide it.
Which makes it an ideal collaborator in a structured team environment.
So moving beyond code and text, GPT 5.2 also saw a pretty substantial investment in its multimodal capabilities, right? Mostly focusing on visual analysis of professional documents and software interfaces.
Yes, it natively supports both text and image inputs and outputs.
And what specific visual analysis tasks saw the biggest gain?
The focus was clearly on replacing manual analysis currently done by researchers and consultants. For instance, its accuracy on chart and scientific figure. Understanding improved to 88%, up from 80% in the previous version.
So for a medical researcher who has to manually analyze dozens of graphs in a paper, this accuracy level makes it a viable tool for speeding up data extraction.
Right. But the truly transformative leap is in UI understanding, which is measured by the ScreenSpot Pro benchmark. This is the model's ability to look at a screenshot of a software application, a website, a complex form, and understand all the elements. Where the buttons are, what the fields need, how to navigate. That capability jumped from 64% in 5.1 to a highly dependable 86% in 5.2.
That 86% score, that feels like the threshold that makes autonomous software navigation a real thing.
It is.
It means an AI agent can be given a high-level task, like schedule a meeting with finance. And it can look at your calendar software, understand the buttons, fill the forms, and click send, all based on visual input.
It moves AI beyond just code and text generation into active, real-time engagement with the tools we use every single day.
And they also launched an image generator with it.
Yeah, we should briefly mention the parallel launch of the accompanying image generator, GPT Image Model 1.5. OpenAI is positioning it to directly challenge rivals like Google's Nano Banana Pro, which suggests a comprehensive push across all modalities.
Okay, that covers the massive intellectual and capability gains. But with increased intelligence comes increased risk. Which brings us to the necessary conversation about safety, reliability, and the security assessments. We saw the hallucination rate drop, which is great, but we also saw some pretty worrying signs on the security front.
The good news first. OpenAI reports the overall hallucination rate, so the rate at which the model just makes up false facts, has dropped to 6.2%.
And that's a significant improvement from the 10 to 15% range of earlier models.
It is. It makes the model substantially more dependable for general information retrieval.
And that drop is economically significant. It means teams can shift from a full, costly human review of every single output to a simpler, more efficient process of human spot checking.
You're catching fewer silent wrong answers, which reduces your risk and your cost at the same time.
Okay, but the improved intelligence also makes the model more capable of generating harmful stuff if its safety guards get bypassed.
Exactly. We have to discuss the results of the initial security assessments, the red team evaluations, which focus specifically on jailbreak resilience, tricking the AI into doing something forbidden.
And the findings were, genuinely alarming. Security assessors used advanced structured jailbreak strategies, multi-turn attacks like Hydra, and single-turn attacks like Meta.
And they were able to bypass the safety filters with really high success rates, especially when the configurable reasoning tokens were explicitly disabled.
What were the numbers?
When reasoning tokens were off, Hydra attacks succeeded 78.5% of the time. Meta attacks succeeded 61% of the time.
And the outputs were not trivial.
No, the resulting outputs were highly dangerous. We're talking detailed MDMA synthesis instructions, precise guidance for drug trafficking logistics across borders, conversation scripts that could be used for child grooming, and targeted harassment content.
So these are not theoretical risks. These are successful demonstrations of the model generating explicitly dangerous or illegal content. What mitigation did OpenAI test?
The crucial test was rerunning these attacks with a low reasoning effort enabled. This reasoning layer forces the model to deliberate, to essentially check its output against its internal safety policies before it generates the final text.
And did that help?
It improved safety, but only partially. It reduced the success rate of the multi-turn Hydra attacks by 16.7 percentage points.
Only 16.7.
But, and this is the important caveat for anyone using this, even with reasoning enabled, the majority of these advanced multi-turn attacks still succeeded. 62% of Hydra attacks and 55% of Meta attacks still got through.
So the core takeaway is that while the model is generally more accurate with that low hallucination rate, it remains dangerously vulnerable to specific, clever adversarial attacks, even with its built-in safety mechanisms running.
Exactly. Enabling the reasoning tokens is a necessary step, but it is not a complete fix. The security reports emphasize that defense in depth still applies.
Meaning
Meaning for any deployment that deals with user inputs or highly sensitive internal data, You absolutely cannot trust the model output implicitly, despite the overall improved reliability. The risk of clever attackers bypassing the guardrails is real, and it's proven.
That tension high utility but persistent security vulnerability perfectly sets the stage for our competitive analysis. If you're running a big company, is it worth paying the 40% premium and navigating these safety issues, or are competitors offering a more compelling, maybe safer, overall package?
Let's dive into that. Starting with raw intelligence, there's really no contest. GPT 5.2 is the undisputed leader in hard logic. Its perfect 100% score on AIM 2025, and it's leading 92.4% on the GPQA PhD level test. They confirm that for pure mathematical and scientific derivation, it has pulled ahead of both Claude and Gemini.
So when guaranteed logical certainty is what you need, 5.2 wins.
It wins.
But the coding battlefield is a lot more nuanced. We know 5.2 leads in production readiness and multi-architecture debugging, scoring that 55.6% on SW Bench Pro, but Anthropic's Claude Opus 4.5 is right on its heels.
It is. It's matching 5.2's high capability on very similar coding benchmarks. The difference really lies in how they code. GPT 5.2 tends to prioritize implementation, getting the code to run cleanly and integrate easily with existing systems. Claude Opus 4.5, on the other hand, excels in architectural design and code elegance. A lot of infrastructure engineers prefer Claude because it scores better on tests like Terminal Bench 2.0, which shows superior command line proficiency in foundational architecture.
That is a fascinating trade-off. Raw capability versus architectural elegance. What about the economic side of that coding rivalry? We talked about 5.2's high cost.
Right.
Does Claude's architecture translate into any real savings?
It absolutely can. Claude Opus 4.5 has superior token efficiency. It can sometimes achieve a higher pass rate on a coding challenge while using up to 65% fewer tokens than GPT 5.2 to generate the solution.
65% fewer tokens.
Yeah. So despite Claude often having a higher per token cost on the pricing sheet, this remarkable efficiency using less digital gas can translate into significant cost savings on large projects. So the choice depends heavily on whether you prioritize raw power, which is 5.2, or token efficiency and architectural quality, which is Claude.
And in the multimodal race, where does the balance lie?
That race is highly specialized now. Google's Gemini 3 Pro, it maintains an inherent edge in native video and audio integration. That's largely due to Google's massive training data focusing on those formats.
Right.
However, GPT 5.2 is now clearly superior for static professional image analysis. With its 88% accuracy for charts and figures and 86% for UI understanding, OpenAI just dominates the domain of speeding up analysis for consultants and researchers dealing with diagrams, reports, and screenshots.
Okay, finally, let's talk about the vibes test, the human preference metric. This is where user experience really diverges and where a lot of people make their long-term loyalty decision.
This is a critical point because it highlights the model's underlying philosophy. Claude Opus 4.5 is still, from what we see, overwhelmingly preferred by users for its more natural tone, its better conversational flow, and its superior, often more detailed explanations.
People feel like it's more collaborative.
Yeah, many users describe Claude as feeling more empathetic, or at least less robotic. It fosters a genuinely collaborative feel.
And GPT 5.2, the feedback we've seen has been much cooler.
Yes. GPT 5.2, in its pursuit of pure, unadulterated efficiency and capability, has been described by some users as cynical, cold, and almost aloof.
It just gives you the answer.
It prefers to narrate from a distance, focusing strictly on delivering the most efficient solution without any conversational pleasantries. I saw one engineer on social media call it the perfect AI coworker. It never asks about your weekend, it just delivers the code.
So the consensus is that GPT 5.2 is undoubtedly the better worker, the high-performance tool.
But it is decidedly not the better conversationalist.
That distinction is incredibly helpful for anyone trying to decide where to invest their time and their money. It really crystallizes the difference between raw capability and, well, architectural elegance coupled with conversational warmth. Okay, let's pivot and synthesize all of this for you, the learner. Given the massive price premium and the high stakes, when should you actually commit to using GPT 5.2 Thinking or Pro?
We've isolated 4 high-value use cases where the complexity and the reliability gains of 5.2 fully justify that 40% cost premium. If your task doesn't fall into one of these buckets, you should probably be using a cheaper alternative.
Okay, what's the first one?
First, high-value accuracy tasks. We are talking about tasks where the cost of a mistake is just catastrophic things like detailed legal discovery, complex regulatory compliance checks, or cap table management. because previous models would produce calculation errors in these areas, and 5.2 offers that 98% retrieval accuracy in long context. It is really the only reliable choice for guaranteed correctness.
Okay, second.
Second, code review and complex refactoring across entire systems. Before, analyzing a big code base required hours of manual setup. Now, leveraging that colossal 400,000 token context window, 5.2 can analyze massive dependencies, identify subtle architectural flaws, and debug issues that cross dozens of files seamlessly, all in a single prompt.
Which significantly reduces developer time and bug patching cycles.
Exactly. Third, autonomous workflow automation. If you are building AI agents that need those complex, sequential 7 to 10-step processes automating procurement or handling high-tier customer support, that 98.7% reliability on the TAU2 benchmark is the production threshold you need.
Reliability scales with complexity.
And 5.2 offers the highest reliability for that complexity. And fourth, workforce planning and executive report generation. The reasoning core of 5.2 allows it to quickly generate sophisticated, logically organized, and professionally formatted reports and models, ready for an executive presentation.
We've seen demos where it produces financial projections and workforce allocation spreadsheets that were immediately usable.
Yeah, a task that GPT 5.1 often struggled to even structure correctly.
So, understanding where the tool excels is crucial. But just as important for maximizing your ROI is defining the boundaries. When should you explicitly not use the expensive, powerful GPT 5.2? Let's start with the obvious one. Simple queries and low-value tasks. If you're asking for a basic summary, generating a standard email, or just brainstorming, that 40% cost premium is not justified.
Right.
Use a cheaper legacy model, the new instant variant of 5.2, or even a rival like Claude, which might give you a better conversational experience for less money.
Absolutely.
Second, handling highly sensitive data. Given the proven vulnerabilities to advanced jailbreak attacks, which, remember, still succeed over half the time, even with reasoning enabled, you have to avoid inputting sensitive internal documents, personal information, or competitive secrets.
The security framework, despite improvements, is not fully hardened. Defense in depth requires treating that input as potentially exposed.
Third, conversational or expressive creative writing. If your goal is a warm, natural, or emotionally engaging output, say for marketing copy that needs a human flair, the cold or cynical tone of 5.2 suggests that competitors like Claude or even specialized creative models might still get you better, more engaging results.
A different tool for a different job.
And finally, and this is so important, expectation management is key. Despite the drop to a 6.2% hallucination rate, the model is not perfect. That still means roughly 1 in every 16 responses might contain a factual error. All high-stakes outputs, especially finance, law, or critical code, must still be spot-checked and verified by a human expert. The AI is a co-pilot, not a replacement for accountability.
In the most successful path forward, incorporating all of that is really a strategic tip. Adopt a multi-model strategy.
Don't go all in on one.
Right. You should not commit exclusively to GPT 5.2. Instead, create a routing system. Simple, fast tasks. Where token count matters and complexity is low, route those to cheaper, faster models. Reserve GPT 5.2 for the high-value, complex, long context, and logic-intensive tasks where its unique capabilities, that 100% math certainty and 98.7% agentic reliability, provide the biggest economic lift.
That wraps up a huge amount of material. We've really traversed the entire landscape of the 5.2 launch, from the code red response that accelerated it to the dramatic jump in abstract reasoning on that ARC-AGI2 benchmark. We analyzed the massive 400,000 token context window that enables entirely new workflows and the crucial reliability gains in coding that finally make true AI agents viable.
And we also had to discuss the necessary trade-offs in cost, the high success rate of jailbreak attacks, and the model's noticeable shift toward a purely utilitarian, cold conversational tone.
So we leave you with 2 big questions to mull over. First, given this incredible focus on high-end professional reliability, can GPT 5.2 truly replace traditional search or creative writing tools for the average user, or does it just automate the elite high-end analysis tasks? And second, which model philosophy GPT 5.2's focus on raw, scaled capability and computational certainty, or Claude's focus on architectural elegance, token efficiency, and conversational tone, which one will ultimately determine the long-term winner of the frontier AI race?
And here's the final provocative thought we want to leave you with, and it ties back to those core intelligence metrics. GPT 5.2's success on the ARC-AGI2 benchmark is a landmark achievement. It moved the needle far beyond what we thought was possible just a few months ago. But the fact that the model, even in its most intelligent Pro configuration, still struggles with nearly 46% of human-easy abstract reasoning tasks means that the core fundamental problem of true, flexible generalization and human-level fluid intelligence remains unsolved. That remaining 46% gap, it quantifies where the boundary between human and machine intelligence still lies. And that unsolved challenge will inevitably drive the next generation of AI research.
A compelling and critical point to end on. That brings us to the close of this deep dive into ChatGPT 5.2. Thank you so much for joining us on the DataZen AI podcast created by the DataZen community. You can find the accompanying article with a full summary of all the benchmarks, the source links, and the use case analysis in the description below. If this deep dive was valuable for you, please click the heart or like button to share your feedback. And of course, we invite you to subscribe wherever you listen, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube, and please send us your topic suggestions via the community channels. We will be back soon for our next deep dive.